Welcome back to Coffee Talk. These are real stories that are told by real people. This episode is a special one. I'm sitting down with my friend Kim Dallefeld, someone who has spent nearly 3 decades helping to shape the Microsoft Dynamics Nav and Business Central community. Kim is a Microsoft MVP, a NAV User Group Legend, a longtime consultant, educator, and the founder of Dallefeld Consulting, which she recently sold as she steps into a new chapter with Centra Technologies. In this conversation, we go all the way back to the beginning. Kim shares a story of one of her first experiences with computers, the moment she thought she broke the entire system, and how that curiosity eventually led her into the early frontier days of Navision in the mid-90s. We talk about building a consulting career from the ground up, what it was like implementing ERP systems across 10 countries, and the very human side of deciding when it's time to close one chapter and step into another. But more than anything, this conversation is about community, about mentorship, and about the kind of leadership that's built slowly over time by showing up, by helping others, and doing what you say you're going to do. It's a longer episode, but it's full of stories and wisdom from someone who has truly lived the evolution of this ecosystem. So let's get into it. Kim, welcome to Coffee Talk.
Thank you. I don't drink coffee, but I'm so happy to be here.
That's okay. That's okay. Amy Keenan said, I don't drink coffee. Can I come on Coffee Talk? And I'm like, bring your protein drink. Let's go. Like whatever suits your fancy is fine with me. So Kim, you've had so many changes really in the last year, right? Tell us what you're doing now. Where are you? We'll talk more about your big change in this episode, but where are you now? What are you doing?
So I am at Centra Technologies now. I'm their BC SME, trying to work with partners, their clients, not partners, clients strategically on what do you need, where are you going with your business, and also doing that with the internal resources and with the business as a whole around Business Central. So it's new, it's different.
Right.
And that's how I'm viewing this stage is just I'm open for the opportunities to do something different. I'm not heads down doing client support and implementation, which I've done for the last couple of decades. So
Right.
it's different. I just try to approach each day as a new opportunity, right?
Right. A new season, a new chapter, doing something different and fun. So, Kim, I want to go way back before the MVP, before decades of implementations, before Dallefeld Consulting. Let's talk about Ford Motor Company. It's about your first experience with computers at Ford.
Yeah. So I was living in Austin, Texas, and I was right out of college. I went to work for a Lincoln Mercury dealer, which is Ford. And the general manager bought the company and he signed up for a computer system in the dealership. The way Ford used to do it is it was typed in and it was like uploaded, via modem overnight, and they sent all your reports to you overnighted every day. So he was one of the first 10 or so to get these in-house computer systems. First, time really working on a computer, a little bit in college, but not much. And the big story I tell about this is, I'm sitting there typing away and I hit the wrong keys. And the screen comes up and says, "Shut her down, Clancy. She's a pumping mud." I'm brand new at this. Right out of I run to we had a room that the computer was in. I opened the door and I don't know what I'm expecting to see, mud coming out of the computer. Anyway, I called Ford and I told them, and they're like, "No way. Show me the
Down,
screenshot." I said,
Clancy.
"I don't know how to do a screenshot." So they told me what keys to hit. And I don't know, a month or two later, I did the same thing. It was just a series of keys. And sure enough, "Shut her down, Clancy. She's a pumping mud." And so I was able to show Ford that this really did happen. They still thought I was crazy, but I had the proof. what's really funny about this story is 20 some odd years later, I'm working on a Business Central, well, at that time it was NAV or Navision, with a girl out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I'm telling this story as she's cracking up at the first mention of "Shut her down, Clancy," and she goes, "I know the guys that put that code in, and it was never supposed to get out in the public, but they were just trying to debug code." And she said, "I can't
Oh, so
wait
it
to
was a
call them."
wow. And you thought you broke the whole system.
I did.
And it was
I thought the computer was pumping mud in the other room. It was really funny.
right.
It's a great story to be able to tell later, but at the time I was scared to death.
I feel like we need to make buttons just to wear that say shut
Shut her down, Clancy.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Just on those days where you feel like everything you touch just
Yeah.
breaks. I certainly have days like that where I'm not at one with my technology. And so on
Yeah.
those days, I'm just going to be like, shut her down, Clancy. Let's move
A good
on.
one. Yes. You know, there are those days, way too often it seems. Try
Yeah.
to do one thing and then five other things pop up. It's like, why my mouse quit letting, or my computer quit letting me do a control C, control V the other day. What
It's a
the heck?
problem. Yeah, it's a
I
problem.
can't function without copy paste.
Today, my keyboard and my mouse both died. So when you have Bluetooth both and they die, you get to take a break. You get to have an extended lunch while things charge. So that was, and I'm just responding to emails on my phone. So, we own our technology, or do we? Which
I think it's the other way
I
around.
think it's the other way around. So let's talk about career paths for you, from your job with Ford Motor Company, then programming at a city utility. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I was hired on as an accountant, and that was not enough to keep me busy. And if I'm not busy, I'm just looking for stuff to do, right? They were putting in a new computer system. So I was like, oh, I can help do some of this. And I kept having to go to the guy and get him to fix a report. And I'm like, and I watched him. I was like, that's not hard. If you just show me how to get in there, I could do those changes, and he's like, so he showed me, and I said, "I'll bring him to you every time, and you can review him." So pretty much, I showed him a few times, and it was like, "Here, go make these changes." And then the accounting manager left, so I became the accounting manager for the city and the data processing manager for the city. So I was doing two jobs. Now I'm happy because I'm busy. But I met the owner of the software house, and he said, I get a lot of calls from small cities or small water supply companies wanting my software. And he said, it makes no sense to come in from Georgia to do this. Would
Mhm.
you be interested in doing some of these small implementations? And so I said, sure. So
Yeah.
I know way too much about how you bill out for water, and I know fund accounting, which, yeah. So it was good. You learn a lot about how governments operate.
Mm,
You get a budget. If you don't spend that budget, you don't get as much next year.
right.
And yeah, way too much about how much excess is in our budgets for government entities.
When along the path did you realize that software consulting was actually your true calling?
Probably there, probably at the city. I the last semester of college, I took a basic, oh, it's called Introduction to Data Processing. That's
Mhm.
how far back this is. And it ended up being a business basic programming class. And I loved it, but it was my last semester of college. It's like, I'm not changing my degree plan now, so I got out with my BBA. So I had this knack for computers. And so I think between the Ford experience and then being able to do what I did for the city, that's when it kind of clicked in. And it's funny because one thing just led to another. I didn't really start doing that till my husband was running a plant, and he was talking to some of his suppliers, and they were sitting in the office one day, and he said, work on computers? And I was like, yeah, a little bit. He goes, I need a computer system for my business, but I can't afford $100,000. And I said,
Right.
I had no idea what they cost.
Yeah.
And he said, there's this one that's been sending me information, and it's only going to be about 30,000, but I don't know anything about it. They want to show it to me in Dallas. Will you go with me? I said, sure. So I went, and he liked it a lot. He said, but you have to help me. You have to be my go-to person. So I literally went out to California and got trained. It was something called Super DOS. They took an IBM AT, and you could plug 50 into this AT, and I just laughed at them. I said, there's just no way. But they would change out boards and some things, and so they turned the AT into a mini computer, which is why it was so much cheaper. And the software was pretty good. It was two pieces of software, one for the distribution side and one for accounting, but they worked well together, and I did that for quite a few years.
Oh, wow. I'll tell you a funny story just because, as a side note, when I started college, and I went to my advisor to go get my passwords. And this was before anything was on a computer. Like, you went to the advisor's office and they gave you, your password to go into the computer lab, because we didn't have computers, I didn't grow up with a computer in my home.
Yep.
I didn't have a computer when I started college. All of my papers in high school, I used a typewriter for. So when I went to my advisor's office to get my welcome packet, they gave me an email address. And I was like, what the hell is this? And they're like, it's email. It's how we're going to communicate with you. And I was like, well, email. Like, it was so foreign to me.
I get it.
Right? And that was really, truly not that long ago. And so now, fast forward, in my home, I have my desktop, I have a laptop, I have an iPad, I have a phone. My daughter has all of the above. My husband has all of the above. Like, my kids don't know a life without a computer, and I have 19 email addresses now. Like, but it was and I was like, well, how am I supposed to get this email?
I didn't, an internet this internet was like, what is that?
What is that?
It was just such a far out idea that we couldn't wrap our heads around. Yeah, I'm looking right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 computers
within right here.
Plus the phone. These things are a whole computer.
They're a whole computer right at our fingertips.
When I was at the city, and they put in this new computer, it went from the punch cards, an old IBM punch card system, to now a mini computer, and we ran out of disk space kind of early on in the implementation. So they had to buy another hard drive. It was 120 megabyte, and it was $12,000.
Wow.
And it was the size of 2 file cabinet drawers wide and about 4 long. It was a big thing you slid into this cabinet. And now this has how much more than that? It's literally crazy the way the technology has gone. My grandsons, the oldest one is 12, they all have an Apple Watch.
That's a tiny computer right there on your wrist. You can answer calls on it. I'm like Inspector Gadget with my Apple Watch. I know it is. I have made the argument that I think that babies being born right now will never have to learn to drive, because cars will drive for them.
There's a lot of 16-year-olds that aren't getting licenses these days.
That's true.
I think you're very true. And somebody said, "Are we getting dumber?" I've heard that conversation. I think we've let some things slide because we don't need to know them now.
Right.
I still think everybody needs to know, but we are pushing some things down because it's just not important like it used to be. Like, who writes in cursive? Which one of my sisters is like, yes, because she would never write in cursive. She only prints. But there's a lot of little things like that are kind of going by the wayside.
I know. As you said, like, I don't have to remember phone numbers anymore. Just a very easy example. I don't have to remember anyone's. I still remember my phone number when I was 5 years old, but I don't know my husband's phone number. So we don't have to remember those things. But I would like to think and hope that we are becoming a little bit more emotionally mature and more emotionally aware, because awareness for other things are kind of our coming up and forward. And we get to talk about those things in community, like, ADHD, autism, things like that. We get to have space for that where, my parents, there was no room for that. I mean, I think it's a trade-off. Are we just switching our brain power into other?
I'm going to go for switching our brain power, but
there we go.
I'm like you. With all my kids, while I was pregnant with them, I read a memory book. It's called The Memory Book. And it's little ways to teach yourself how to remember things. I'm bad with faces.
Mm-hmm.
And until I've had a conversation with you, I won't remember your name. And so one of the things in that book was to take a feature and connect it to the name, which I never got.
Whoa.
I still don't do it, but it's interesting. But one of the things I use out of the book is when you've got something really important you need to remember, especially if it's like, it works for me on a task. Like, I've got to remember to mail that tax return tomorrow, right? You create some image, like I would put an envelope across my front door in my vision. That's one of those Tyvek ones, and you can't tear, so I can't get out the door without taking my envelope with me.
Yeah.
And it's just a quick image that you kind of have to set, and it's funny, then you remember it. But all of my kids, I read that to them, and I don't know, maybe some of it stuck. They all seem to be doing okay.
Those memory tactics, when I'm at home, I usually have love notes to myself written on my hand so that I don't forget things, just like, little things like that.
My husband's a list maker, which I
I'm a
said,
list
fine,
maker.
just don't make lists for me.
Right?
I have my own list. I do not need you making lists for me.
I know. I'm definitely a list maker. And then I have lists that say refer to the list on the pink Post-it.
Do you remember the Franklins where you used to, like, you're supposed to move all of the things you didn't get done today to the next page?
Yep.
I got so tired of doing that.
You're like, this is too much moving for me. And again, because you start in one task and then you get sidetracked with 5 other tasks because something doesn't break, and then you don't get through your list, you have to move it to the next day.
Yeah, it made me mad.
Right. Well, let's pivot a little bit back on track. We've talked about everything under the sun so far. Let's talk about your early days in Navision and becoming a Navision pioneer. 1995, you reviewed a software for a company that would become the 8th Navision reseller in the United States. So you were trained in 1996 and never looked back. That is early. That is frontier days. What was that ecosystem like in 1996?
Very sparse.
Mm-hmm.
One good thing is, I think, that Navision did was they did staff their Atlanta office with good people, right? Because nobody knew anything, so you were constantly calling in.
Yeah.
I remember I did the 2 weeks of training, one for being a developer and one for being an implementer, and sat down at my computer and went, how do I get started?
Yeah.
They just kind of dove us in without, okay, step 1, step 2, and so I didn't even know how to create a company. So that was the first phone call. And so you get to know the people on support very well. It was hard. It was learning on the job, figuring out as you went, which that never scares me for some reason. I'll figure it out at some point. I do remember I was at Johnson Engineering. I was working late because we were doing an upgrade, and they were on version 1.0, and I think we're going to 1.1, 1.01 or something. It's a stack of diskettes, 3.5-inch diskettes, like 20 something of them, and plugging them in. And then every time you would start to go to the next step, their data would have an and sign or a dash or something in it, and you had to go take that out and then start over again. And it was a very long night. But I remember this. I wish I'd had a stack of those diskettes. It was amazing when we got to go to a CD.
In those days, you did everything, programming. You said you did training. You were managing projects, support. You're wearing so many hats. What do you think wearing all those hats taught you?
Yeah. Well, you learn a lot of skills. You kind of learn the most important things is really about listening. I was doing a demo for somebody, and there was another client doing a demo. What they came back and said is, you listened. It wasn't you were trying to tell us what we needed. You listened to what we thought we needed before you know, said anything. And I think that's the big thing is a lot of times we think we hear what's being asked and then we start down a road and it's not at all what the customer was trying to ask. So I think listening, which I'm still not good at because I want to jump in and talk about it. But
Yeah.
I think that's it. I totally love the programming I did in Nav. I let it go when BC came out. I said, "You know what? At that point I had met some good programmers and I said, "You know what? You guys are good. I'll do the functional side." Having sat on the side of the desk where I'm doing the work allowed me to empathize with the customers, right? I know what you're going through. I've been there. I've done payroll. I've done payables. I've done counted inventory out in the warehouse. So all those things you can understand what your clients are dealing with. And I think that's where we miss out sometimes when
Ah,
we take young people and try to make them consultants. They need some practical work experience,
yeah.
right? That's not saying that they won't be a good consultant, but having that background where I can say, "Oh, have you had to do this?" And they go, "Yeah." You make that connection with the customer. And that's the fun part to me.
I did a coffee talk with Steve Chinsky,
Mhm.
one of 3 BC amigos. That was Steve's feedback too, was that, our younger, our junior consultants, our junior developers coming up need that foundation of experience and also those soft skills of being able to communicate with people. We don't always get to go on site and meet with people anymore. There's a lot of this. There's a lot of like
Yep.
digital conversations, right? So again, it's a change. We're kind of trading one thing for another.
And I can't tell you how much work and how much help I used to give and get being in someone's office and just
Okay.
having to walk by and see them open up Excel and take this data out of Business Central, put it in. I would go, "What are you doing?" "Oh, well, I have to put this in here and then I calculate this and I take that and I put it back." And I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute. We're going to find a better way to do this." Right.
Right.
And you don't get to see that when we're just on the computer with faces. And way too many clients and companies don't use the video, right? I know it slows
Yes.
computers down and that kind of thing, but it is such an important part. I know
Yes.
that's and I've been guilty of it for sure. It is a big thing at Center is that we want to have that connection at least visually, even though we're not in the same space. So
Yeah,
I really appreciate that. And I found too that if you have your camera on, it encourages others to put their camera on.
it does.
That's real
Yeah,
good.
it absolutely does. And I think, you were at Vibe with me last month and what a amazing community event that was. And I think everything you're saying speaks to the importance of coming together as a community, being in the same zip code, sitting in rooms together, learning together. Um, some of my best learning doesn't happen in a classroom. It happens in the conversation that happened in the hallway right before I walked in that classroom. And you don't have that. You're not going to get that from just webinars or, online learning. You have to have those person to person conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And even application of what you just heard in a classroom that really synthesizes that learning. So we'll talk a little bit more about community in just a minute, but I'm curious. So, kind of digging back into your story, we were in 1996 when you jumped into NAV ecosystem, and then by 1998, you were independent. You were on your own in
Yeah,
98.
I was.
Yeah.
So the gentleman who brought me in and became eighth in the in the US. He already had a business basic practice, and his people just didn't take to Navision. Here
Oh,
I am thinking it's better than sliced bread, and they don't want really any part of it. So he didn't have a whole lot of success selling it because he was kind of afraid to because people didn't want it. Then I ran across somebody who was selling it right and left and needed people. I'm like, well, that's where I want to go. And I
yeah,
was just a consultant with Ray, and so I went to work for this other person. And yes, we had lots of clients. And I was there for, I guess, almost 96, 97, somewhere in 98. And then it was the fall. I'm on my way to a client site, and I got a phone call. What time are you going to be here today? From a different client. I was like, I'm not scheduled to come to you today. I'm actually headed out of town to another client. Oh, well, the owner had said you'd be here today. And I said, well, I'm going to have to reschedule because I'm going somewhere else. Okay, well, let me know when. And so I said, I'll get back to you. Driving along a little further and another phone call. You're going to be here after lunch, right? No. Same scenario, right? So I started questioning what was going on. And then where was I? Was with somebody and found out that they had never received their license.
mm,
And so I'm trying to help them figure that out. And the owner then said, oh, I haven't bought it yet. Well, they've been live 3 months. What license are they running on? So basically, I found out that he's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and he's just not going to make it. So I gave my notice, and I was in the tail end of an implementation. I said, look, I'll bring them live within the next 2 weeks and then I'll be done. And he said, no, that's okay. Okay. So I called the client. I said, be sure you call the client and let them know I was supposed to be there tomorrow. Let them know, and just don't leave them hanging. Well, they didn't. So I had a phone call on Sunday night at my house with this client calling, what will it take to get you here tomorrow? And so I went out there. He showed up the next day. Had not talked to the clients till I went out there. He showed up the next day and got on she can't be here working. She doesn't work for me, blah blah blah. And they called Division and told them what was going on. And Division granted me a right to use a license, do whatever I needed to do. So I worked that client for probably a year. But, and yeah, so I became independent because then other people started calling me. Uh, and, it was just bad management. I mean, the guy could have had like, one of the great um, partnerships of because he was in it early and did so much, but he was a nice guy, just not a good manager.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of, and then from there, I stayed independent till 2003, I guess. And so all through Y2K and all of that was super busy, 99 and then 2001, 2 were there wasn't a lot of computer stuff going on. Everybody spent all their money. And in 2003, one of my largest clients talked me into going to work for them. So I did that for a couple of years.
You were working for Partner of the Year in 2014 with
14
a larger partner group.
was.
So you've done kind of every side of Navision. So you're talking about chapters that stretch you, that push you. What did the season of working for Partner of the Year in 2014, what did that season teach you?
So we had a pretty good sized team and we were working on a global implementation. And that was hard because the client wanted us in London for like 3 weeks and then home for 2.
Was it one client, multiple country?
Mhm.
Yeah,
10
wow.
countries.
10 countries.
That's when I learned you can buy an around the world plane ticket.
Wow.
And as long as you're going, well, then you could. As long as you were going the same direction, you got 33,000 miles or 36,000 miles, whatever it was. Um, so we did an around the world trip in about 10 days. We went to 5 of the 10 countries. And in each country, we met with 2 countries. So they would pull somebody into one of their other locations. And it's like they were talking about Abu Dhabi on the news. I was like, "I've been there." And Indonesia, Australia, and
Wow.
then, of course, London and Houston. That was harder when I realized that I'm more of a small business type person. I
Yeah.
get really bogged down when we start having to, dot every I, cross every T, which is all necessary, but and let's do that, but let's don't make it stall everything out, right?
Right. Right.
Which I've learned more and more that, unfortunately, because things are moving so fast, we have to do that more now than we used to. But it was very heavy on, well, trying to coordinate 10 countries. I get it. They were trying to get everybody to do things the same way. So that was a
Mhm.
challenge, right?
Mhm.
Getting basically 10 independent companies, which they weren't, they were all one, but 10 countries to do everything the same
Right.
way and compromise. I mean, that was a story of compromise on every end and some being worse than others.
Yeah.
We had a blast traveling all the time.
Right.
I stayed on the toppest tier you could be for United for like 3 years because of it.
You definitely have that status. So you do this massive implementation in country implementation, but then when you got back, is that when you went out on your own with Dallefeld Consulting, or was it a little bit
Yeah.
later? Yeah.
No, it was shortly after, well, 2016, I think, is when I
Yeah.
left. The person who owned the company had sold it years ago and was just supposed to stay on a couple of years to run it.
Yeah.
And she was on like year 5 or 6, and she finally said, "Guys, I'm supposed to move on." So they brought somebody in out of the cell phone industry
Yeah.
to run the company. Nice guy. It just, was a very different market for him. I guess within 3 months after he was there, senior people started leaving. And from November, I left, I think in June or July. I turned in my notice and talked to my developer, and he had turned in his notice the same day, neither one of us knowing the other was doing it.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, now I'm mad at you because you should have told me that you were leaving before you left." Anyway, yeah, we both ended up leaving. And like the next 2 months, it was just mass exodus. So, and it wasn't any one thing other than that, a lot of little things. Yeah. So I thought I would try working with some small partners, seeing if I couldn't help them grow a little bit. I had one that had an add-on, and I always thought maybe I'd like to work for a company that had an add-on
Yeah.
um, that really helps a market. I was there 6 months and never saw the add-on. And what I realized very quickly is the owner there was just his own worst enemy. Very difficult to deal with for everybody. There was a revolving door at that company. So I guess that was the last one when I said, "Okay, I think I'll just pick up some work here and there and do that." And I just kind of grew from there.
So you built Dallefeld Consulting from scratch. What does building something like that teach you about yourself?
Well, I've never been shy of confidence. I think that goes back to
Yeah.
growing up in a small place. And if you wanted to do something, you got to try it, and my parents just being supportive in that way. I mean, I started programming in Access, billing somebody $25 an hour, right?
Yeah.
About around the time I started doing Navision, actually. So, and I knew I could catch on to software, right? I have a knack for numbers and things. I could see something, it would just make sense that I know what to do. I can't explain it. So I just, that confidence was really something that didn't bother me. And I'd been independent before.
Yeah.
So it was really, I just talked to people, let them know I was available. I did work for partners. I called some old clients that I had done work for, and did a little bit of work for some of them. I didn't sell systems, so that was the key there. I was not. competing against any partner.
Mm.
I could be a resource for a partner to use, and
Yeah.
then people would
Smart.
find me at a conference somewhere I was speaking and ask for help, right? Could you just help me with this one thing? I know one lady said, I need you for about 10 hours. And I helped her out. And then we had a, a meeting every week for like 6 months and then every month for another year. Finally, they're on their own, but they
Yeah.
just had so much that they needed done. So it was just a little morphing like that. Yes, somebody would leave a company and then call and say, hey, I'm at this new company and I want to put in BC. So
Yeah.
it's just a lot of that. I think honestly, being around so long, your name's out there so long that people remember, a name or see you again and they're like, yes, I want to talk.
Yeah.
So I didn't do anything fancy, didn't do advertising. I do have pins that a lot of my customers like. They love my little pins.
I
I
love your
literally
pets.
get people
I
asking
love
for
your
my
pets.
pins.
Yeah. I
But
do.
no, it was just a little by little. And if I saw I didn't have a lot of work, I would call some customers and just say, "How are you doing?"
Yeah.
One of the things that I really learned that helped keep things moving somewhere along the way, the guy that does my programming, he would get a customer who also needed something functional. So now
Mm-hmm.
he's giving me work and I'm giving him work. And
Yep.
so then we found other resources that were independent that we could so you could take on more than you could do because you knew you had good resources that you could put on the tasks. And that's really what helped stabilize things, really made a difference. I did learn that whenever I would talk to somebody on a support issue, once I helped them solve it, I would say, "Hey, did you know about the latest thing that came out?" And I would say there's these 3 things that I think are really good, you might use them, and I'd get more work out of that, right? Because they hadn't heard about it. I think there's a lot of work on the table out there for everybody just to help teach people all the things that Microsoft has been adding to the product because it's
Yeah.
so much.
And I
Yeah.
think that goes back to your lesson about listening. So calling the customer and say, how are you doing? How can I help? How can I show up for you? And then listening and then knowing the product, knowing the advances in the product, and then coming alongside them and helping them. And that makes you indispensable. How did you know that it was the right time for you to sell? And what was that like emotionally for you?
Well, I think when people started asking me, "When are you gonna retire?" For 2 or 3 years in a row, it's like, "God, I guess I need to." No, it literally was looking at it, I hit another decade old next year, and, it's like, I love what I do, but do I wanna it's harder to travel these days, it's just,
Yeah.
uh, conferences are great and they're awful because the days are long and, um, it's just hard to keep going. I'm not 40 anymore. I won't even say 20. So it was a combination of things, right?
Yeah.
Can't keep up the same pace in your 70s that you did in your 40s or 50s.
Yeah.
So I just started talking. I approached one person, and I said, "What do you think?" And he goes, "I'm interested." And I was like, "No, I didn't mean that. I just meant." He goes, "No,
It's just a
I'm serious."
conversation.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, "I was just kind of getting your opinion." And he's like, "No." And so he said, "You just talk to whoever you want to because they're all going to react like I do." And so, yeah, making that decision was hard. Like a couple of them for probably really good offers, but they wanted to build literally from scratch something. It's like,
Mhm.
guys, I'm on the way out. I'm not really ready
Right.
to build.
You're not building. Yeah.
I'm not building. I'm I'm
Yeah.
I'm on the slide.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for one that was maybe I could help push a little bit, but also I knew would take care of the customers. Even if they didn't change at all, they were going to take care of my customers because a lot of them have been with me a very long time.
Yeah.
And so that was a deciding factor there. It's been interesting, right? I have to get approval for travel.
Right. You have a
It's like,
boss now? Do you have a boss now?
I have a boss. It's
Yeah.
so funny because he has a boss now, and he was also owned his own practice.
Yeah.
So he gets it. So it's easy. It's easy going, but it's just having to you don't make the decisions anymore, right? Um, but it's all been good. The people have been really nice. I like it. I want to do more for them. Um, and I just, I'm one that likes to do things fast and go
Yeah.
and get it done. And
Yeah.
um, bigger organizations have more layers of things, and yeah. But so I've been 5 months with the new company as of today, actually.
Well,
So there's 19 to go.
19 to go. We're counting them down. We're counting them down, and we're going
Yeah,
to
we're
throw a big
counting them
party for
down.
you at the end. Kim, you were one of my first points of contact in the community. I don't remember how our paths crossed, but I'm so thankful that they did. When I mean, I've only been in channel for 3 years, but when I look back, like, I don't ever remember a conference where I didn't give you a UST pay bracelet. Like, you have been
They're sitting on my desk over here.
you have been a trusted friend of mine since my boots, or I should say my heels, first hit the ground. In your career, you didn't just build systems. I have seen you build community. You teach across the country. You are an all-star. You're a legend. You're an MVP. Those are really notable designations. For you personally, what do those honors, those designations represent for you?
An all-star came along late. It happened literally when I was working for that partner of the year because they didn't do anything with the user group.
Yeah,
And so I had done all this work helping build the user group, and then I was not in it. And that's when they started the All Stars. So it was like, well, I guess I missed out because I did all my work before that happened. So
right.
that was kind of nice when I got that one. Legend was total surprise. That was gracious of DCI on that. There was a lot of us who really pulled the user group back up from the
Mm,
ashes of COVID and right before. I think it was the MVP that I walked around on cloud 9 for months. I didn't know there was such a thing. I guess I really didn't find out about it or understand what it was for a long time. And I knew somebody who was an MVP, and they basically discouraged me from
mm,
working towards it, and then spoke at a round table and made the statement that their goal was to get more female MVPs. This is after I was discouraged. And
yeah, yeah.
luckily, a mutual friend of ours, I happened to literally bump into her, and she looked at me and she said, "What's the matter?" And I was like, I'm just mad. It's okay."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Tell me what's going on." So anyway, um, and she was just so gracious and helped me out, said, "Here's what you're going to do." And and um, within the year, I got that award, and uh, I
Yeah.
really appreciated her and really the community. It's really interesting. I feel like I'm more noticed now, and I don't know if people just feel like it's easier to come talk because you have that designation. You're not just another user. I don't know what it is, but it really was a stepping stone for more. It also gives me a little motivation to make sure I keep trying to give information back to the
Yeah.
to the community.
Yeah.
I'm working on videos. I'm not good at videos yet, but I'm finding that my little short videos, I can't talk short. I mentioned in one of my videos the other day, well, this was supposed to be 4 minutes long, but we're on 9 minutes and 50
Yeah.
seconds. So I
We're
guess I better end.
we're on a 54-minute coffee talk right now, but you and I like to talk, so I wasn't surprised that this one
We
wasn't going
do.
to.
I will have to say this. I remember meeting back and UST was, an unknown entity in the community, and wow, look at what you've done. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody
Thank
knows
you.
Kate. Cake, coffee, bacon,
It's the
and
name.
yeah, and you know, you're well known in the community now
Yeah.
in just 3 short years.
Thank
It's a
you.
big community.
It is a big community, and I'm a community builder. I believe in people, and I believe that people need people now more than ever. We need each other because we can't learn it all. We can't excel at everything. So do what you do, and you do it really well, and then you get by with a little help from your friends.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah. And so I fully believe that. And so a huge part of my job at UST is a community builder. I serve in almost in every conference group. And what I'm seeing over time is the beneficial connections I'm able to make. Last week's coffee talk was with the new president of IEMCP and Molly Fuchel, who's just started the new partner education conference. And I brought them together and we talked about the importance of partner education. And you don't get there by showing up in communities, and this is a very big platform that I stand on, is what can you give back, not necessarily what are you grabbing when you go into a space. So giving, not grabbing. And so it's really important to me, and I really love this community, and every event that I go to, I feel like I get butterflies in my stomach just to see everyone again and share space. And, I say we're all in the same zip code. If only for 3 days, we're all in the same zip code. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for coming alongside me and being my friend and being a mentor to me, and just being a light. Every time I see you, you're really special to me, Kim. So,
Back at you, girl.
yeah, good.
The community thing, I get people all the time that, we're always encouraging people to get involved in the community,
Yeah,
do speaking, get involved somehow. And I always tell them, I said, you're going to get back as much as you put in,
that's right.
right? And sometimes way more. Until I really got involved in the community, it was Microsoft created the first user group for business for NAV, like in 2003. But before then, we were all just out there trying to figure it out on our own, and just you meet one person and then you meet another. And one of the girls that's on the board for BC right now, I met her just a few years ago, and she just kind of introduced me to other people, and I think she actually did a speaking co-presenting with somebody, and she's just stretched and gone a little further. And I mean, it's exciting to see people blossom in the community, because that's what happened when you're among friends,
Yeah,
because that's what it is. It's a big friendship
it
among
is.
everybody. Partners who are out there competing against the same thing, they're still friends,
Yeah,
right? And in the end, they're still friends.
yeah.
So yeah.
Well, as I wrap us up, you've given some really great advice about community, jumping in and serving. What stands out to me in your story of what we've talked about for the last hour is this thread of curiosity that you have, of resilience that you have, from a debugging message at Ford that we're going to put on light up buttons, leadership in a huge ERP implementation project. You built and sold your own firm. You have lived and thrived in so many seasons and chapters of reinvention without losing your core, and you're still doing it now in this chapter that you're in, and you're just a true inspiration. Thank you for showing me what steady leadership truly looks like. I count myself so very lucky to be called your friend. Thank you for coming on to Coffee Talk, Kim.
Thank you.
Is there any other last piece of advice you would give to maybe somebody that's just stepping into, our crazy family?
You know what? Be yourself, be honest, do what you say you're going to do. It's all the things that I grew up. I can't hear my parents as I were just saying these things, right? And that's one thing for me, is if I say I'm going to do X. I'm going to be here. I'm going to speak there. Whatever it is, then you do it because you committed to it, right? What I loved about being an independent is I could tell it how it was. I didn't have to walk a party line when a salesperson sold something that wasn't quite there. And that still happens. It's unfortunate, and but a salesman might have seen it this way, but you can't it I hate that part.
Yeah.
But I think that's it. Just be yourself, be honest with people. I think you find that even though something came across wrong, if you're honest about confronting it, people are much more understanding. Okay, not everybody, but most of them,
Most
right?
people. Yeah.
So that's my big thing. Don't be afraid to ask for help,
Yeah.
right? Because we all need, like you said, we need a little help from our friends.
Just getting by with a little help from my
Yep.
friends. Yeah. Well, again, Kim, thank you for spending your hour with me. If you're listening, thank you for hanging out with Kim and I. There's so many nuggets in her story that I know will inspire you, that you can carry on and apply into the work that you're doing in your own life. Until next time, this has been Coffee Talk.
Bye, Kate.
Thank you for joining us today on Coffee Talk. A special thanks to my guests for sharing their story, and to you, the listener, for being a part of this conversation. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a Monday morning chat. Until next time, I'm Kate Coffee Bacon, and this has been Coffee Talk.